This is the phoenix mind, where the fire refines, break the chains and rise to shine. Rise stronger, lead with heart, every end a brand new start. With Lisa Manzo, we transform, we ignite. This is a phoenix mind.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Mind podcast. I'm Lisa Manzo, your host, and today my special guest is Kayla MacDonald. So I'm going to read you her bio so you can learn all about her. Kayla is a writer, podcast host, and a narrative alchemist. I have no idea what that means, but we will find out. Who helps high-achieving women turn their personal healing journeys into powerful stories. Through her signature Rewrite Me method and the Embodied Writing Warrior podcast, she weaves together creativity, emotional regulation, and archetypal storytelling to help women reclaim their voice, their worth, and their wildness. No, I never had a problem with that one. The wildness aspect. After overcoming emotional eating, burnout, deep-rooted perfectionism, Kayla uses her own story and the stories of the archetypes she co-creates to guide others in rising from the ashes and creating lives that feel like art. Kayla, thank you for being on my podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here.
So I love your bio, and now I have to ask because I commented while I was reading it, what is a narrative alchemist?
This word alchemy has so much magic because it's the process of taking one thing that might not be ideal and turning it into something beautiful, like lead into gold, for example. So with narrative alchemy, you take a pre-existing story, a limiting belief, I'm not good enough, for example, and you do alchemy with it. So the new story is, I am perfectly worthy as I am, imperfections and all. So that's an example of what narrative alchemy can look like. And there's so many stories and beliefs. And when you can excavate the ones that don't serve you and do this alchemical process to start telling stories that do move you forward, that's where so much magic happens.
Yeah, I talk about that in the post that I write. I'm like, what story are you telling yourself that's not true that you need to fix or you need to shift or rewrite it? And that's awesome because and writing is such a great tool because it involves the hand, it involves the brain, it involves the eyesight. So the more senses you involve in things in healing, the more healing you get. Right? Have you found that yourself?
Absolutely. And you can even make it even more sensory. For example, essential oils is just such a nice thing to add to the writing process because then you're getting the sense of smell, which is a little bit tougher. And you have a hot cup of coffee that's delicious. Oh, yes, another essential oil lover after my own heart. So, yes, you can all the senses with writing if you weave enough things in.
So tell us a little bit of your story because you wrote to me and about being on my podcast and you told me tell us about your childhood because there's some pretty intense things here because I want to the whole point of the podcast is to help people grow and heal. So tell us your story because this is so important for people to heal and you seem to be very happy, which is awesome because that means you're healed or healing.
And I have come a long way. Definitely wasn't always a very happy person. It was a journey. And I believe a lot of that came from the childhood I had. So at around 6 years old, I came home from someone's house acting in very inappropriate red flaggy ways. And my mom was convinced that something alarming had happened. So she took me to the hospital and they could not confirm or deny, but she has a lot of deep intuition. So she knew something had happened. And right after that, she experienced a huge breakdown of her health. So she was bedridden, in and out of hospitals, and she was never the same after that. Even to this day, she has a lot of chronic health conditions. And that alone was challenging to lose a present, available, healthy mother at that age. But then I was also taken to a therapist with my mom's friend. And my mom's friend was doing the speaking for me. And she said, Well, Kayla came back from this person's house. She was acting in this way. Her mom assumed that this happened, and then her mom had a breakdown. And that was sort of my moment where I created this story of this was my fault. I am a problem. I am not good enough. And at that same time, all of my binge eating, sneaking food, gaining weight happened. And then came the bullying. Then came another layer of not good enough. So that was sort of my origin story that I really had to do a lot of processing and alchemy with myself.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. You triggered something in your mother, and this is your story, not hers, so we'll leave that there. That must have been mind-boggling, and I could see how a child would say, "Oh, this happened to me, and now this happened to my mother, so it's my fault." And now, how were you able to heal that? Let's talk about that. I know you say alchemy, but like, was it through writing? Did somebody help you? Did you have to find a coach?
Has been a decade of probably close to 20 plus years. So there were therapists. I think I've seen 4 or 5 different therapists over the course of my lifetime. There was also coaching, which was so powerful. Creative writing was another place where I really processed a lot of my emotions. I also then began learning about parts work and internal family systems and going back and recoding some of those old subconscious beliefs. And then more recently, I have learned a process called dance alchemy, which is probably why that word is such a big word, because this is a healing modality that allows you to heal through your body. Because the body is where you often hold so much of your wounding. And you cannot mindset your way out of that, as beautiful as journaling is. And not only can you not heal everything from your own history with mindset alone, but you definitely can't heal all of those ancestral things. As you mentioned, my mom has her own stories, her own wounds, and we don't just carry our stuff, we carry some of that. And I found that somatics, especially dance, has been one of the most powerful modalities for helping release and heal those old stories.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because as women, well, as anybody's children, we're born when our mothers are born because our eggs are in her already. So I was born on the year my mother was born because I was inside her until I actually came out to the world, which somebody had, I mean, I always had known that, but the significance of it has completely shifted for me because being in her for all those years, I experienced every bit of trauma that she experienced, and my daughter experienced every bit of trauma that I experienced, which I find it's so great that you can figure out that you can heal it. I'm really grateful for that we can heal it. And yeah, so that's so cool. And let's talk about the weight loss because I've always had my own issues with weight loss because as a teenager, I found that that was the one thing I had control of. And and look, it's and it bothered both my parents. So it was win-win for me. It was win-win-win. It bothered both my parents, and I had control over something in my life for the first time. So, and I still work on it because there's stuff there that hasn't healed yet. So talk about your journey with weight loss, please.
So from 6 to about 18, I was overweight, bordering on obese, and I snuck food, I overate, I binge ate all the time. And then in my last year of high school, I went on a weight loss journey. And I did the controlling, the calorie counting, and you do get a little bit of a high off starting to see that weight come off. But what was challenging was that I hadn't solved for the true wounds underneath. So then university hit and I went back to eating the same way. The binge eating came back. And then in, I think, my second year of university, I developed bulimia as well, which I'm fully recovered from. I have been for 14 years now, which feels really good. But I had this relationship with food where I went through periods of intense restriction and control and overexercise that were then followed by feeling out of control, binge eating. Because as Janine Roth says, for every restriction or diet, there is an equal or opposite binge because your body doesn't want to be that tightly controlled. So
Mm-hmm.
over the years, it's been about creating that healthy level of control that's more about self-trust and listening to my body and cooperating with my body and finding other ways to navigate my emotions that don't involve food instead of trying to have the perfect diet, perfect way of eating, or even the perfect body. I have instead shifted my attention to how good can I make my body feel because I'm taking care of it, not can I get to that unicorn goal weight that might even not be the healthiest place for me. So that's been a little bit of my journey.
That's interesting. So, and then it sounds to me, and I don't know, this thought just popped into my head, so I just want to throw it out there that people are punishing their bodies because they don't think they're worthy of having a healthy body and being and honoring themselves. So they punish their body and then they suffer the consequences of it. What do you think of that?
I think that's a huge piece. There's often these subconscious contracts we make with our family, especially if the people in our family struggle with their health, which my mom does. My both my sisters do to a degree, and I've felt very lucky in that I haven't had those same health struggles. So then for a long time before I did that deeper inner work, I had this subconscious contract of I can't be too fit. I can't be too healthy. I still have to struggle in this area. Otherwise, I'm almost in a strange way being disloyal to my family of origin. And this one, I believe, hit even harder for me because I had those old stories about being responsible for my mother's ill health in the first place.
Yes, I can, yeah, be responsible for everybody else except ourselves. I giggle because I used to feel that way. I used to feel responsible for everybody. I had to fix everybody. I had to save everybody. And I don't do that anymore. I have healed that part of me where like, I could suggest something to you, but ultimately it's your choice and it's not my responsibility to heal you. So then you also wrote, let's shift a little bit. You realized that along the way you had an incredibly unhealthy relationship with health coaching. What does that mean?
In 2015, I got my dream job, or so I thought, as a personal trainer and health coach. And in a lot of ways, it was a beautiful job. I had an amazing employer, amazing coworkers, amazing clients. It was a beautiful job in many ways. And as soon as I got that job, all of my challenges with binge eating came back and they came back full force.
Wow.
And the worst part was now I was supposed to be leading by example. So there was this extra pressure. And then I knew that behind closed doors, I wasn't being the person who was leading by example. So there was perfectionism. There was thinking my body needed to be my business card. There was
Shame?
shame, a ton of shame, and very unrealistic expectations about what a personal trainer or health coach needed to be. So that's what I mean by the unhealthy relationship I had with it. It was very focused on external metrics. It was rooted in perfectionism. It was rooted in needing to hyper perform and overfunction, which is an impossible standard for anyone. And that led to the binge eating, which led to the shame. And it's interesting because many health coaches and personal trainers have very similar struggles because of the way the industry is set up.
That's so interesting. So then we talked about, so you had this inner resistance, we'll call it. That's your name for it, inner resistance. And it's so interesting because I've started this podcast. I'm on my healing journey. I will be on my healing journey for the rest of this life. It's not like, oh, you're going to heal one day and you're going to be completely whole. As soon as I heal something, something else comes up. It's just an opportunity to heal something else. And I'm on this journey, right? And yet I still feel some resistance. I'm doing this podcast, I'm moving forward, and yet there's still a little bit of resistance in there. How do you, I know it's there, right? So, and I'm working on healing it. How do you heal your inner resistance?
Few methods that I use. One is dance. One is some of this archetypal parts work, which is interactive form of journaling. And then another powerful reminder I always keep in mind is something one of my mentors often says. And he says, in order to move forward and create the life you desire, you don't have to heal everything. You don't have to get rid of all the resistance, especially all at once. You just have to clear enough of it to take the next baby step in the direction you want to go. And that's something I always keep in mind when that resistance comes up. And if dance isn't clearing it, if writing, journaling, meditation, all those things aren't fully clearing it, I take those micro actions in the direction that I want to go. And then often that resistance starts to dissolve over time all on its own.
So, how does dance heal inner resistance? Make that connection for me because I'm not making it.
So the form of dance that I gravitate to is dance alchemy, and it moves you through the four elements. So the first element is earth, and that's where you get grounded, you slow down, you connect to your body, and you're just present. So you're allowing the resistance to be there. You're not trying to fight it, suppress it, make it go away, because that often makes it worse. And then you move into water. And this is more of that flowing, connecting to your feminine energy, letting your emotions be exactly as they are. If you're feeling a lot, this is where you're going to cry if you're doing dance alchemy. But that crying and that catharsis is what allows the energy to move. And then you move into fire. And fire is where you're shaking, you're stomping, you're letting go of what doesn't serve you, aka resistance in many cases. And then you're also stepping into your power. And finally, you go into air, which is a lot of more lighter, expansive movements, and you connect to the energy you want to feel, as well as the visions you have for your life. So you move through the stuck, the resistance, and then by the end, you're dancing in the energy you want to be in. And you can often walk away from one of these dance alchemy sessions just ready to go and take those baby steps or even big steps sometimes in the direction you want to go.
All right, talk about archetypes because I know what you're talking about because I've educated myself on a lot of this stuff. Yet I know that some people might not know. And let's talk about how you the subconscious resistance you heal through. What did you say? Jungian, is that how you say that? Archetypes?
Yes. So the main archetype that I've been working with is what's called the animus. And the animus is the masculine side of a woman. So it's the part that gives her her drive, her discipline, her ability to go out and take action in the world. So basically, a woman will have a desire, something she wants to birth forth, but she needs that masculine structure and action to bring it into being. The challenge is that for many women, one of two things is true. One, either they've been told to be more feminine and their animus is suppressed entirely, or their animus is mean, a bully, and hypercritical. So perfectionists, people with a noisy inner critic, type A people, people who have a lot of shame, probably have an unintegrated animus, which basically means an archetype that wants what's best for you, but because they have their own wounds or healing journey to go on, they don't always have the best way of showing up for you. Does that make sense?
It does. And then I've healed that part of me, the way you've spoken it, because I used to be very judgmental and mean and bullied myself. And now I'm just kind. And look, I have the shirt, Be Kind. It says,
Yeah, that's my favorite color too.
and I just mine too. And I also like blue, but purple's my favorite color. And it's a silly story. It's my favorite color because my kids decided when they were little they went and asked their father what his favorite color was. He said blue. The guy never wore blue in his life. He only wore black. So why he said blue boggled my mind. But it makes me laugh. And then I said blue, and my kids decided I couldn't have the same favorite color as their father, so I had to pick a different one. And I just cracks me up even to this day. So I picked purple, and it ended up becoming my favorite color. And I just laugh every time I get to tell that story because it's so cute. Because they were like 4 and 7, and it's just such a cute story.
That is.
And but so it also says, so you talked about a little bit in the beginning about your mother thought that you were assaulted. And do you have any memory of that? We don't.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
It's interesting. I'm okay. I'm an open book. It's interesting because she thought it was a particular person, an adult figure in that household. And I don't remember this person doing anything, but I do remember certain things happening with someone in that household who was the same gender as me and very close in age. And I didn't clock that as abuse until much later when I was talking to a therapist about, I can't remember if this person did it, but I do remember this. And they pointed out, okay, well, this person abused you. And I had never made that connection before because, again, same gender and very close in age. But it still obviously created those behaviors when I went home that were problematic. And I imagine they did have some kind of prolonged effect going forward. It just wasn't the traditional type of abuse someone might have considered.
And you can only imagine what kind of abuse that person suffered to be doing that to you. I came across that in my teens with a group of girls, and I didn't know how to get out of the house. And it was a very uncomfortable situation for me. And I don't know how I got out of the house. I know I left, and I know I never spent another minute with those girls ever again in my life. And it was, not, it was just very uncomfortable. I won't say that actual assault happened, but it was leading in that direction, and it was completely uncomfortable. And, until you said it now, oh yeah, that happened for me too. And I was grateful that I was strong enough to walk away and never ever interacted with those girls ever again. And it was great because it was eighth grade, and then after that, we were all going to different high schools. So I never even saw any of them again after that. So that was very healing for me and very empowering to have walked out of that in my people pleasing stage that I was still in. Did you suffer from that as well, people pleasing?
Very much so, yes. It's still a work in progress at times.
It is. It's always a work in progress. Boundaries too. Boundaries are a work in progress. I'm much better about them. I'm much better about them than I ever was before. I have some hard, really, really hard boundaries, and they protect me. And I see that now, which I couldn't see in the before. So, what helped you start to be able to set boundaries?
Still a work in progress.
Yeah.
And one of the things has actually been doing this archetypal work. So, again, if you have this animus that you're working with, that's the part of you that has the fire that is really good at setting boundaries. They can like see where something is not working for you and has some injustice, and they will help inspire you to take that action and set the boundaries. So that has probably been one of the most powerful parts is doing that work so I have a healthy inner masculine so I know how to set those boundaries and be more assertive.
That's awesome. Hey, so talk to the audience about what happens with your inner circle when you start setting boundaries because it's very interesting.
Yeah, they don't like it.
At all. And that's very simply put, they don't like it.
So true.
It is. And do you find that they come around and they accept your boundaries?
Most of them have. A lot of the ones I had the biggest trouble with were my previous place of employment, and I don't work there anymore. So, I mean, they had no choice.
Right. Right. Well, that's great that you're able to, because I want people to be aware that when they start setting boundaries, you will get pushback.
Yes, 100%.
And you need to be strong for yourself because boundaries are so important for your own mental health.
Yes, they absolutely are.
So let's talk a little bit about your books because you said they were very healing from you. You wrote a couple of different series, so let's talk about that.
Yes. So the first series I wrote was a dystopian, basically feminist rage series. And I had had quite a few really challenging experiences with my romantic partners as an early 20-something-year-old. And I could see a lot of the ways that women were treated that I really didn't like. So I wrote this entire series about this island where women thought that they were like in power and in control, but behind the scenes, they were all getting like matter vaporizers. And they were told they were going to like Delilah's Palace, which was this cool place that didn't exist. So the whole four-book series takes you through the destruction of this island, of this very exaggerated version of patriarchy, where women are seen as sex objects and lose their value over time. And yeah, so that was my first series. It was a way to process a lot of. And then my next series was trilogy about shark shifters. Yes, because we have too many werewolves and were-dragons, so we needed some sharks. But these books were really beautiful because they were me writing about the love stories I wanted to see. Instead of writing about what I didn't like, I was like, what about if I wrote a series about what love could actually be like? What would healthy relationships look like? And after writing the second book, which was loosely based on a crush I had on this guy, that's a whole nother story. I actually ended up dating that same guy, and I'm now married to him. And what was really magical is that the relationship we have is very much like the dynamic in that second book. So it's almost like I wrote it into being before it came true. So the
Oh,
first book was really a
is that what I need to do? Is that what I need to do to call that person into my life? Write it out, maybe, right?
it's worked for me. So I would 10 out of 10 recommend it.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. We're gonna say the first book.
So the first book series was very much about like processing rage and all of those challenging emotions. But once you like get all out of your system, it's like, what stories do I want to write? What stories do I want to see come true? So that third series was really about not just healing my relationship with men, but also healing my relationship with myself, especially in the third book. Because in that book, the two main characters, it's two males, because I have a thing for male-male romance. One of them is the one who people pleases, who does what his family expects, who tries to follow the rules even though he hates it. And the second one struggles with low self-worth and he puts everybody else first and he tries to like martyr his relationship and push away the other guy. And both of those characters were almost aspects of my own personality, and them getting their happy ending was just really special and magical. So those are my books.
Because it's always anything's possible.
Yes.
So, Kayla, I have two more questions for you. The first one is, how do people get in touch with you when they want to learn more from you?
I would recommend going to embodiedwritingwarrior.com. You'll find my podcast there. There's a gift, all kinds of cool stuff. And then I'm also on Instagram at Embodied Writing Warrior as well.
Awesome. And a piece of advice for my audience that they're struggling through something to get them to keep going and get through the resistance.
I would say the biggest thing is either move your body or ask yourself what story you're telling. And then remember that it's all invented. And if that story is not serving you, you can tell a completely different one.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. This is Lisa Manzo. It's been another episode of the Phoenix Mind podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.
This is the Phoenix Mind. where the fire refines. Together we rise, transform our lives. So subscribe, share the flame, help a friend.